want to thank all of you for joining us at this congressional briefing, especially those of you who are staffers, who I know have a super busy day, especially where we are in the congressional season, and also to all of our patients who have flown truly from around the entire country to be here this afternoon. How'd your meetings go this morning? Everybody's good? Show of hands. These are really guys easy to talk to, right? So we didn't lie to you. So I want again emphasize a lot of you who were here last night for our get together. I want to thank you, but also especially the congressional staffers who are with us today. Why, when you see so many people on a daily basis, there are 7,000 rare diseases out there, and it is a very rare moment in history when you get to say, wow, these rare diseases, we actually have something we can do now. And this has been over a 20-year journey of working with the NIH, working with the FDA, working with pharmaceutical companies, and all the congressional, especially those with the kidney caucus, to really have a moment to stop and celebrate for the fact that we actually are at the right moment now where we have alternatives, that patients do not have to face dialysis and transplant as their only option, which is really what it's been for the past 50 years. So we're going to share why that is and what the work we have to do remaining. So before we go on, very quickly, I just want to talk to you a little bit about NephCure, what we are, how we operate, and why today is really quite special. NephCure. So we are a patient advocacy organization, as you know, but we're a little bit of an odd duck. We heavily engage in research and development, and we work very closely with the NIH, as I mentioned, NIDDK especially, as well as the FDA, and also pharmaceutical companies and the Congress to really talk about this cross-stakeholder leadership model that we'll talk about in a minute. But the key point is empowering patients. It's not good enough for a patient just to get to a doctor, because with rare disease, these doctors often see 1 or 2 cases a year. And how do you become an expert on something? So our goal is to move them to talk to a specialist. When we have new drugs that are approved for a rare disease, it's not just a given that the physicians are going to know about these. They have to get to a specialist, like Dr. Mariani from the University of Michigan, who's joining us here today. And so empowering the patient to become educated, get to the right folks, take charge, et cetera, is only half the game. We have to make sure that they have access. And that's what today a lot about. So who are we? We work as a community. We're the largest community of rare kidney disease out there. There are other organizations that are much larger than we are. They focus on dialysis and transplant. We focus on preventing dialysis and transplant. And we're actually at that point. Over our 20-year history, you should know that we've invested over $40 million in research. A lot of the people who you see who are specialists today were grant recipients and have discovered genes and things that we didn't know existed even just 10 years ago, especially the APOL1 gene that affects people of color disproportionately. We also know that a lot of these diseases now have pathways that we didn't understand, and now we can point you to the right drug and the right trial. So research is fundamental, education is fundamental to our core being, but again, if I could point you to the right, we're at the first time when we can prevent end-stage kidney disease, prevention of dialysis and transplant. $88 billion is spent every year on dialysis in this country, and you see the clinics popping up everywhere. We are now at the first point where if we can get to the patient early enough, we can almost always, not always, but most of the time prevent dialysis and transplant. It is a truly new era. Who we serve, NephCure works a little unique. So think about it. Any disease out there, there's the American Society of fill in the blank, right? There are physicians that belong to the American Society of Nephrology. There are drug companies that specialize in a particular category of drug. There's even the FDA is divided by category, right? But who brings everybody together and makes sure we're all talking to each other? In 2 days from now, we're going to be meeting at a major conference about these dialysis drugs diabetes drugs, that were being used for years. And now we have discovered, wow, that's pretty cool. They work in certain types of chronic kidney disease. So NephCure, along with the ASN, is convening a conference. Well, how do these drugs work in kids? We don't know that answer yet. But everybody you see here is going to be at that meeting. And that's NephCure's role. We provide the backbone and the catalyst to get things going. And so we're here to celebrate having the first of these drugs being approved, and we have now 60 clinical trials with a whole bunch more coming, because we're never going to get to one drug fits all. This, in rare disease, it's quite complicated. It's like cancer, I hate to say it. It's mix and match, see which one works, so we need them all. So this value inflection we talk about, why RKD? So you've seen on TV, Tarcega, and do you have CKD? Well, where does that fit? Rare kidney disease. So rare kidney disease, by FDA parlance, is 200,000 patients or less, right? But there are 35 million people in the United States with chronic kidney disease. So rare KD, RKD, I'm hybridizing like that. So RKD is a subset of the CKD. The innovation that is happening, however, in the landscape is people like Dr. Mariani, who work in rare kidney disease, preventing dialysis and transplant. That same work gets parlayed into the 35 million. That's why RKD is so special, because it's not focusing on dialysis, it's focusing on the development of drugs and therapies that can be used by just about all kidney transplants. That's why RKD is unique. So if we go to where we are now at the point in history where the past 20 years, we started with working with the NIDDK. How does this disease tick? And supporting the NIH. So when we met with you and your congresswoman or your senators in the past, this legislation and support of the NIH went to specific work to figure out how these diseases tick. We then go to the pharma company and say, hey, by the way, this pathway. And they go, yeah, I got a drug for that. I'm using it over somewhere else, but now let's try it in kidney disease. And then we worked with the FDA to find out an accelerated approval because, let's face it, rare diseases are hard to recruit and they're not cheap. And in a result of finding a pathway using surrogate biomarkers and things that the Congress has supported, we were able to increase the number of trials from 6 just 5 years ago to now over 65. And each of these drugs means a potential therapy for patients, okay? So that's why we're here today. We had the first 2 drugs approved for one of these classes of rare disease. So you'll hear Calliditas and Travere. We're thankful for both of those companies. The first 2 drugs that came out for a class called IgAN. There's others in the wings for FSGS and membranous nephropathy. We still have a ways to go, but they're in the very touchable near future. The key is, guys, and please, for those of you who are staffers, in rare disease, a drug gets approved, it doesn't just get used. It has to have access. So you're going to hear things like the Safe Step Act, et cetera. We can't have patients go back to using off-label cancer drugs in order to qualify or pre-qualify before they get access to a newly approved drug by the FDA. So getting access to the patients is key. We've worked so hard to get to this moment. So setting up centers of excellence, setting up care centers, setting up health equity initiatives that make sure those who get the drug equal to everybody are so important. So thank you for coming today. And you're going to hear a list of speakers today going through different points. So it is my pleasure to introduce our Executive Director of Patient Engagement. She is a patient mom. Her daughter Macy is a beautiful young lady who is close to her second kidney transplant, doing well, but has literally spoken to more patients with rare kidney disease probably than anybody in the world. So let me introduce my pleasure, great colleague and friend, Kelly Helm.
Thank you, Josh. It's my pleasure to be here today. As Josh mentioned, I am NephCure's Executive Director of Patient Engagement, and I'm also a patient parent. I've been with NephCure for just over 10 years now, and on the journey with my daughter Macy for 14 years. And I've experienced and heard a lot of different journeys with rare kidney disease. And so today, as Josh mentioned, we have reached an inflection point in the rare kidney disease space. And as a leader in this space, NephCure has along with other community partners, has come together to ensure better outcomes for these patients and ensure that those impacted by rare kidney disease are getting the treatments and resources that they need. So I'm going to go through a little bit of history to get to where we are today with our new era of Preventing End-Stage Kidney Disease Act. Back in 2019, kidney disease was put on the national agenda. The White House signed an Advancing American Kidney Health executive order that called for revolutionizing CKD and kidney failure, ensuring that they were diagnosed and treated in a better manner. But the key stakeholders, including NephCure, came together and recognized that the executive order didn't necessarily meet the rare kidney disease patients' needs. And so in September of 2020, NephCure, along with partner organizations, held a groundbreaking policy roundtable on rare kidney disease. And the months following, leaders in the RKD space met with policymakers in Congress and HHS. They came together with one goal in mind: to take a deep dive into the needs and pressing policy issues of rare kidney disease patients. And then also crafted potential solutions to those issues. So NephCure Travere Therapeutics, along with the American Association of Kidney Patients, came together and hosted a Revolutionizing Kidney Care Through Novel Therapies workshop. And the members of this workshop formed 3 working groups. They included patients, healthcare providers, diversity health organizations, diagnostic companies, payers, along with other rare kidney disease organizations and biotechnology manufacturers. And we came together and formed the first ever workshop where nephrology and rare disease organizations worked together. During this roundtable, we had 3 work groups, as I mentioned, and these work groups considered 3 topics: the cost of not treating rare kidney disease, promises and challenges of innovation in the rare kidney disease treatments, and addressing the underserved in rare kidney disease. Each work group explored policy issues and potential solutions, and then on September 23rd, 2020, select work group leaders reported their findings before an online nationwide audience, including leaders from HHS and multiple members of Congress, and shared 5 summary recommendations. So these 5 recommendations were essentially a call to action, taking the first step towards advocating for public and private policy changes to improve the care for rare kidney disease and ultimately chronic kidney disease and the lives of everyone that are living with them. The first call to action is to increase rare kidney disease awareness. This is something where you'll hear us talk a little bit later about how not even some nephrologists who are kidney disease specialists understand rare kidney disease and how to treat these diseases. And so it's really important to come together and raise awareness, to create strategies to reduce the number of patients who are progressing to end-stage kidney failure. As I often say, kidneys don't get the respect that they deserve. We really have done a disservice to kidney patients in this country by viewing dialysis and transplant as adequate treatment options. We should call it what they are. Dialysis is life support, and transplant is far from an ideal future. The second call to action is to bring significant reductions in time to diagnosis for rare kidney disease patients. Many of our patients experience what we call a diagnostic odyssey, where it takes months to years to get an appropriate diagnosis. And by just changing a few simple things, like including urinalysis at healthcare PCP physicals, can catch rare kidney disease early on. Also, genetic testing should be more readily available to all patients in all communities, and we can find out about rare kidney disease much sooner. It seems as though a lot of times our patients don't actually even get referred to a nephrologist until it's too late to really treat their disease. Similar to Stuart here, they may see multiple doctors and before they get the right diagnosis, and then by that time it's too late. It's too late to treat their disease, it's too late to enroll in a clinical trial, and they come crashing into dialysis, is what we call it, and end up in end-stage kidney disease before they really ever had a chance at preventing dialysis. The third call to action is identifying and meeting the needs of the underserved communities in rural areas that don't have access to specialists. Kidney disease disproportionately affects communities of color. So identifying and meeting the needs of the underserved patients should be a priority and needs to be addressed in order to provide access and important tools to these patients. The fourth call to action. Currently, there are no real standards of care. So if a patient at this table went to the doctor, their doctor might say, I think we should try prednisone, and if that doesn't work, we'll try tacrolimus. But the same patient with the same diagnosis at this table will go to a doctor and they'll say, let's just skip right to rituximab. And so our patients are left kind of as guinea pigs, trying off-label medications that are repurposed, that sometimes work. Oftentimes patients, a certain treatment option is maybe 30%, 40% if you're lucky, likelihood of working. And so we need to change that by including nephrologists and primary care physicians in better education so that they understand these diseases, but also so that we can get better standards of care that are cohesive across the patient community. And then finally, access to specialists and patient advocates will help preserve kidney function and result in better outcomes for our patients. Those patients here today are connected with a patient advocacy organization in NephCure, and they're learning from their peers. They're also learning from specialists in the field like Dr. Mariani, and they're going to take that back as an empowered patient and ensure that they receive better care. And we need to continue that opportunity for all patients across the United States. So the recommendations from Revolutionizing Rare Kidney Disease Roundtable and the We Deserve Better white paper resulted in the introduction of the new era of Preventing End-Stage Kidney Disease Act. In April of 2022, it was introduced in the House by Representative Gus Bilirakis and G.K. Butterfield, and we are currently awaiting reintroduction, hopefully in the coming weeks in the 118th Congress. But what this bill does is it addresses all of those action points that I just reviewed. It establishes rare kidney disease centers of excellence to ensure that patients are getting seen by expert physicians. It promotes early intervention, improved diagnostics. It also addresses disparities in underserved communities to ensure access to all patients. It promotes provider education to ensure that more doctors understand how to treat rare kidney disease, and also ensures that they are up to date on the rapid innovations that are happening in the field. And it allows us to expand our rare kidney disease research so that we can continue to better understand why patients are being diagnosed with rare kidney disease, where these kidney diseases are coming from, and allows us to better treat them so that maybe someday we can be like many cancers where you go to the doctor and are diagnosed and they say you have 85% chance of remission instead of 30% chance, or where it is now you have 50% chance of progressing to end-stage kidney disease. Our goal is to change that narrative to a more hopeful landscape for our rare kidney disease patients. And so, as you can see, the cost of not treating rare kidney disease is leaving families like mine in an impossible state, impacting their daily lives and leading to inadequate treatments like dialysis. And as I often say, we deserve better. And with that, we're going to have a quick overview of rare kidney disease by Laura Mariani from the University of Michigan. She is one of those specialists I talk so dearly about and really has impacted the rare kidney disease landscape for our patients. And it's my honor, Laura Mariani.
Great, thanks. All right. Thanks so much for including me. Of course, today I'm really excited to get everyone in this room as excited about me in terms of what the kidneys do. So I know many of you are actually now honorary nephrologists based on how long you've had kidney disease and how much you know. But for those who are new to kidney disease, I want to give you a little tour of the kidney. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about. First, I'm just going to tell you about the kidneys and what they do. We're going to talk about rare protein-spilling kidney diseases, and I want to contrast that to kind of more common causes of kidney disease. And lastly, we're going to talk about not only the challenges, but with really the hope that I have for my patients. All right, so the kidneys. So most of us are born with 2 of them. They sit in your upper back. They come right off the aorta, and they get a huge amount of blood flow because their main job is to clean the blood. And so what happens is as that blood hits the kidney, it branches into smaller and smaller blood vessels until finally it gets to this structure called the glomerulus. And that is the filter of the kidney. And the glomerulus is where all of the magic of the kidney starts. So as the blood comes through the glomerulus, fluid gets pushed out into the tubules. And that fluid heads off down the tubules, and the kidney tinkers with it perfectly to make the perfect urine. And it's a huge job. So actually 140 liters a day of fluid flux across your glomeruli. You don't pee 140 liters a day, thank goodness. We would all actually just do that all day long. You don't do that. Your kidney knows how to reclaim all of that fluid back and all of those electrolytes to make the perfect composition of urine. So I love at big events like this, I just think about all the work the kidneys are doing right now to handle everything that you're taking in. All right, but the glomerulus is where that all starts. And for our diseases, this is where the problem is. It starts at this glomerulus. So the kidney actually has several jobs. I think its most well-known job is the one that that we just talked about, which is cleaning the blood. So sort of as that blood comes into the kidney, you know, good things are supposed to stay in and bad things are supposed to come out. But it does a lot of other important things. So it regulates electrolytes, it regulates all of the acid that we produce just by being alive. It also makes some really important hormones that are necessary for bone health and for keeping your red blood cells elevated. And so you probably don't appreciate all this, but you know, if you sit down and eat 10 bananas, you don't have a cardiac arrest, and you can thank your kidneys for that. Like that's what it's doing, like minute by minute by minute. Okay. So how do I as a physician know if the kidney is doing its job or not? So the most simple way we do it is we do a blood test, and we measure this toxin called creatinine. We all make it. It's made in our muscle. And it's the kidney's job to clean it out. So if that number goes up, the kidney's not doing its job of sort of cleaning out the blood. And we take that number and we plug it into a formula, and out spits your estimated GFR. And this is really your percent of normal kidney function. So it's kind of handy that normal is around 100. So you can say, okay, perfect score is 100%. And as you start to have a lower estimated GFR, that's less and less kidney function that you have. And we plunk them into stages that you can see there, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes that gets translated like to the oncology world. I have stage 4 cancer. It's not really the same thing. This is really just telling you what percent of cleaning ability your kidney has left. The good news and the bad news is that the kidneys have tons of backup, right? So actually patients typically don't feel anything until you're down to around 10%. So that's good because we can lose a lot and still keep people off dialysis, but bad because people don't get picked up early, right? Often come to me and they say, how can this be that I have kidney failure? I feel fine, I'm still peeing, I feel no symptoms at all. And I have to try to explain to them, but I can see this in your labs, and it's heartbreaking. Because one of the other ways we can tell if those filters are healthy or not is those filters, they're supposed to hang on to good things like protein and blood, right? You don't want your blood, as it's coming through the kidney, to lose all your red blood cells in your urine. But if those filters are damaged, those good things start to get out. Things like protein and blood we can see in the urine well before the kidney function actually starts to decline. And so when I meet those patients when it's very late, it's often looking back in their medical record that I can see this has been going on for a lot longer. And what happens if I do get them too late? You know, kidney failure is sad. Like last night we talked about why are we here? I wrote on my name tag, I'm here because I never want to start another patient on dialysis. I just don't want to have to do it. I don't want to get to that point. Because what I ask my patients to do is take on the worst part-time job ever. They have to ask them to go to, typically in this country, to go to a dialysis facility 3 times a week for 4 hours where they're connected to a machine that cleans the blood and removes fluid. But guess what? The kidney is so much better at this. It works minute by minute by minute. You can't cram all that kidney function into 12 hours a week. It's just a lousy surrogate. And it's expensive, and people pick up all sorts of other problems when they're on dialysis. And so the return on investment to preventing even just one patient from reaching this outcome, it's worth it. It's worth it every single time. All right, so rare protein spilling kidney diseases. So I like the analogy of a colander that as blood's coming in, good things stay in, bad things come out. And in these rare protein spilling kidney diseases, it's that filter that's damaged. And so what typically happens is patients get picked up either because their kidney function is reduced by that GFR or they're spilling protein or blood in the urine. And there's a variety of ways that those filters get damaged. What we do right now in adults is we actually ask them to do a kidney biopsy. So we take a little piece of tissue from their kidney, we look at it under the microscope, and we get a little bit of a clue of how those filters got damaged. In kids, because overwhelmingly there's one type of injury, they often start off with medications to see if it works before they go to biopsy. But eventually, both kids and adults, if they're not doing well, eventually get a biopsy. And I think one of the problems with our rare diseases is that the disease names are actually patterns of injury on the biopsy. So they have really, oh wait, I'm going to skip this one. So they have names that are not super catchy. So they have names like minimal change disease, or this is a good one, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. This is like the bane of every med student's career. Membranous nephropathy, IgA nephropathy, C3 glomerulopathy. Okay, so these are really challenging things to say, and so they're not super catchy. So just putting them in Google, you're gonna misspell it and this kind of stuff. So but the problem also is that that's just a pattern of injury. And actually, even patients that share that diagnosis, they may have many different ways that they've arrived at that pattern of injury. It's not the same as underlying biology. And so that's why when Kelly says we tried this and it's only a 30% chance of working, it's probably because they had another reason to have that same pattern of injury. And if we could match this person to a therapy and this person to a therapy and this person to therapy, even though they had the same picture on their biopsy, we'd be so much better. Okay, So how about common kidney diseases? So this is a graph from the USRDS. So this sort of gathers a whole bunch of information about patients who have reached kidney failure. And you can see in this country, overwhelmingly, the most common causes of kidney failure in the US are diabetes and hypertension. That third little bar is glomerulonephritis, which are the rare kidney diseases are in there. This is number of people starting or hitting kidney failure in 1 year. And I know these people. I know people in these bars, and I will know people in next year's bars. And I just want to see all those bars come down. So what's really important, though, is these diseases, there are many ways to injure the kidney, and there are unique ways and shared ways. So things we learn about our rare kidney diseases help not only our community, but they help the people with common causes of kidney disease as well. And that burden is enormous. So 1 in 7 people have some type of kidney disease. Many of them have no idea that they have it. And it's for the reason I said the kidney has so much backup. But our rare kidney diseases, these are often younger people. They often don't have other medical problems. And they have, this difficult diagnostic journey. And I love taking care of patients in this group because, really it's the thing that has upended their life. And if I can get it under control with them, they can go on to go to college, they can take that promotion, they can start their families, all of those things they want to be doing and not worrying about kidney disease. So we've talked a lot, and many of you know in this room some of the challenges that, nephrologists, there's a lot of us out there, but actually the rare diseases, a given nephrologist may see very few, and it's a lot of work to take care of people that you're trying to ask insurance companies to get this drug, or trying to ask for genetic testing, or trying to schedule infusion medicines, and they just don't have the experience to be able to do that. So I love partnering with a community nephrologist, and we co-manage patients together. It's a great model. And then, like I said, right now we just don't have the tools we want. I want to know who's going to respond to this medicine or not, who's going to go on to dialysis, who's not. How can I do a better job than I'm doing today? And I'll just leave you with this, that there is true hope. So there's true hope. So I think it's really a kind of a straight line between the funding that goes to research. I'm obviously 100% biased. I spend a lot of my time doing research, so of course I think what I do is important. But what has happened is as the NIH has funded research, we've built these large research consortia where patients have partnered with researchers. So in CureGN, one of our consortia, we have over 3,000 people with rare kidney disease that have agreed to share their clinical data, their genetic information, their blood, their urine. And so now, when there's someone who's studying a mouse with kidney disease, and they're like, hey, I have this great idea, they can come to our consortia, and that urine is frozen somewhere here in DC, I don't know where, somewhere, and they can just come and test their idea, and it's right there ready to translate it. So that NIH-funded research has led to many important discoveries. I think the best success that just tells you how the tide is turning is what's happened in IgAN. So in one of these patterns of injury is called IgA nephropathy, and that little schematic on the side with all those little cells and the kidney, that is actually a understanding of the biology of why this IgA molecule that's supposed to stay in your gut, why did it relocate to the kidney? And once it gets there, why is it damaging the kidney? And there's many steps that have to line up for that to be the case. But because basic research figured out that pathway, we now have therapies that are being developed at each one of those. And those 2 new therapies, one starts at the gut and one works in the kidney. So now you can imagine for this disease, for IgA nephropathy, I have many options when I used to have zero. Like, it was really like, take a blood pressure medicine and hope that your kidneys don't fail. I mean, it's a terrible way to practice medicine. But that has really changed. And I can tell you one success story in understanding the biology for each of our rare kidney diseases, including this one that tells you this is all now hitting the clinic. This isn't just people working in cell cultures and things like that. So this was in the New England Journal of Medicine. It was for a new therapy for patients who have a high-risk APOL1 variant. And just to tell you how excited the kidney disease community is about this, this made it into our top medical journal with only, I think, 13 patients in that study, 13, 1-3. but all of those patients had one of our rare kidney diseases, spilling a lot of protein, and essentially all of them had improvements in their proteinuria. And the fact that it made it here just shows you how excited people are for this whole paradigm to change. So it is truly a new era. There's a ton of hope and excitement, but it's really from this community of the patients joining the research, the funding, and the companies partnering with us to give us the tools that we need. Okay, that's it. This says the battery's running low.
So thank you, Dr. Mariani. I have never met anybody who could take something so unbelievably complicated and make it translatable, so thank you again. We've heard from Kelly about the rationale and the scientific breakthrough from NephCure perspective. We've heard from the clinical perspective of a physician who treats these and says, hey, we're at a new era. So it is my pleasure, and it really is an honor to be at the point now where after 22 years to be able to introduce legislation, again, that was co-created some time ago with NephCure and Travere. We have the honor of, from just habit, guys, Representative Gus Bilirakis' office, Colleen Malloy-White, who is the Health Legislative Assistant, to discuss the new era of preventing end-stage renal kidney disease and kidney caucus priorities. And thank you for all your time and working on this to reintroduce. So it is our honor. Colleen, thank you. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. To begin, I want to say thank you for NephCure for hosting this briefing today and inviting Congressman Bilirakis to attend and provide remarks. Unfortunately, he could not be here in person, but I welcome the opportunity to share how passionate he is about rare disease, and in particular, rare kidney disease. Mr. Bilirakis has a very robust health portfolio, serving as a senior member of the Energy and Commerce Health Subcommittee. Further, he is the co-chair of many healthcare caucuses, including the Congressional Rare Disease Caucus, the Diabetes Caucus, and he is a member of the Congressional Kidney Caucus. As our national strategy on kidney care continues to focus on reducing the risk of kidney failure, he supports current efforts by the rare disease and nephrology communities to explore how advances in rare kidney disease treatment and care could provide new patient-centered treatment options, reduce federal healthcare costs, and most importantly, improve lives. There are approximately 150 different types of rare kidney diseases, each affecting between 20,000 to 200,000 individuals nationwide. These are the most aggressive forms of diseases that, if go undiagnosed or are not treated properly, often lead to kidney failure. Unfortunately, the causes of rare kidney disease are poorly understood, and most have no FDA-approved treatments. Rare kidney diseases contribute to the more than $84 billion spent on treating Medicare beneficiaries with chronic kidney disease, including the $42.9 billion spent on treating people with end-stage kidney disease. Yet, there has been little to no innovation in diagnostics or upstream treatments for kidney disease patients since the 1960s, when dialysis and immunosuppressants became commonplace. Still, we are on the verge of important advancements in rare kidney disease therapies, a renal rare revolution. But know that there are significant challenges and opportunities to be addressed. Tackling rare kidney disease is a meaningful way to make progress on our national strategy for all kidney disease patients and can lead to possible breakthroughs nationwide. As a leader in this space, Congressman Bilirakis is pleased to work with Congressman Sewell on important and timely legislation. The new era of preventing end-stage kidney disease Act. We are excited to see this bill reintroduced in the 118th Congress and welcome support as we work to address rare kidney diseases through research, training for health professionals, and other means. So thank you for being here on the Hill today. We appreciate your time.
And again, our sincere thanks to Senator Bilirakis and Sewell for the reintroduction that should be very shortly, something that everybody from both sides of the aisle can celebrate. Before I introduce our patients, this is something really that, as I mentioned, is quite rare. But I think it's a celebration of how government can work together and has through the years. This started with working with the NIDDK from NIH to really figure out how the disease ticks, working with the FDA specifically to get a pathway to enable these companies to come along, and now with the bill to really make sure that access is equal, and we have the Centers of Excellence to actually use the fruits of our labors. So this is a true government success story from both sides of the aisle over many, many years. I want to say thank you again, especially to Trevere and all the folks who have been helping this throughout the years. So the most important part is to hear from patients. So we're very privileged today. In this room, if you're a staffer, please know you're surrounded by patients. We have adult, pediatric, transplant patients, patients who are on dialysis, patients with very different forms of disease. Some are in remission, some relapse. It's a very complicated system, but we're making great progress, as you've seen. And so it's with that, it's my honor now to introduce two patients. One, Imani Mintz. Imani, you're here? Come on up. And Becca Garcia. I'm going to share a little bit about the two most prominent diseases, but one is FSGS, which Dr. Mariani, I won't ask you to say what that means, and IgAN, but welcome both of you, please. So, Imani, if you want to go first.
Yeah,
thank you.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Imani Mintz. I have FSGS, that stands for focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. I was diagnosed in 2016. I had intended to go to California, and I wanted to just get some full blood panel work, and it went left. I got the full blood panel, I did, and it just came back. That week I had changed my number to a California number to prepare my move. And so my doctor was trying to call me all week about my results. But as I changed my number, she didn't have that number, and it was hard to reach her. So when I went to the appointment, they told me that, they've been trying to call you all week. And they said, oh, well, she's in physical therapy next door, let's get her. And so while I'm waiting for her to come over, I asked for the printout from LabCorp. I turn to the third page, and it says, I have kidney disease, stage 3B. And I'm just shocked, like, what are they talking about? Oh, this is an error, they draw the wrong blood. But that was not the case. They drew the right blood, and I just never had the symptoms that I had. I just never paid attention to. And for me, as a Black female, it's 5 times more likely for African Americans to develop kidney disease. So I furthermore went through a biopsy, and they tested my urine, and they decided that I had FSGS. Now, all the doctor at the time said was I was going to take 1 pill a day for the rest of my life. She never mentioned dialysis. She never mentioned transplant. She never mentioned anything that could, any co-diseases that could, happen from the kidney disease itself. So honestly, I was just a little bit, just taken aback, like, oh, I'm just going to take this 1 pill, I'll be fine. There was just so much misinformation that both of my nephrologists at the time had given me. They just, I want to say they never prepared me for what was to come. I was diagnosed at, my EGFR was 38, and I wonder all the time, what if I had got testing done beforehand, even if it was solely blood panel related, no urinalysis. I had seen doctors prior, but I had never got a urinalysis, so I didn't understand what was happening with me. I come from an underserved community. The diagnosis is just not as prompt as it should have been, and I should have got diagnosed earlier. The fact that I went from a full blood panel in 2011 to 2016, and I seen doctors, none of them were testing for the things that they needed to see the full scope of. And that's something I advocate for my friends now is, okay, well, if you're healthy, get your 1 full blood panel once a year, and make sure you do your primary visits. For me, it's also about the new act, things that were not provided to me throughout my journey. So I got diagnosed in 2016 at 38. I held on between the 30s and the 20s for 4 years. And I never really felt awful until I got to below that 15%. That was, my feet were so swollen that if you stuck your thumb in my foot, it left an indent in my foot. Pain, discomfort. One of my first symptoms was I was tired, but I just thought that that was just from working. I thought that, I was working a full-time job, that I was just a tired young female. There was also foam in my urine, but I just thought, hey, there's just bubbles. There was nothing really extraordinary about it. It was normal color of what we expect, and no one ever teaches you anything but to pay attention to the color. When you urinate, they never say, oh, look at the surface, see if there's mucus in it. They never really taught me anything about the importance. And so I took a blood pressure medicine for 4 years, and that kept me a little bit stable. And then I got a transplant. I got a transplant this past September, but I started dialysis the week COVID happened. So when the mall shut down, I was in a hospital in a chair plugged up. I still didn't understand what was going on. And I decided from there, they gave me my options on what kind of cleaning I wanted to do. So they told me the best option was hemodialysis, and I started with that, doing nocturnal, which is 7 hours for someone of my size, overnight from 7 to 2 a.m. at a DaVita dialysis center. And then I said, well, first shift is from like 6 a.m. to like 10. You can't work a 9 to 5 if you get off a machine at 10 a.m. So I decided to do home hemo, which was 4 days a week, 2.5 hours, and I was able to keep a full-time job. And then I luckily had landed a position in 2021, and I was able to stay more than a year, which gave me FMLA coverage. But that should never be the case also. I should have certain protections from day one of my job. But I was able to be there a year, and when I got my transplant, I did have the coverage I needed. I was on Medicare, I was on Medicaid as well, which provided me income, like the cost coverage. I also had an employee-sponsored plan, which covered the $500,000 for the transplant, and also gave me the ability to really get back on my feet, and also receive short-term disability while I was out of office recovering. Now, I did receive a transplant this past September. Beforehand, I did get another call from Georgetown saying that I was a runner-up. It fell through. I was devastated. I said, I can't believe I made it this far. My average wait list time is 8 years. So I was saying to myself, at minimum, I was going to be on dialysis for 4. I had no idea it was going to be as short as 2.5, and I'm grateful for that. So the transplant went well. I had no reoccurrence of the FSGS. I still spill protein, but just not as high as other patients. 5 months after the transplant, I was just doing some weekly labs, and there was no issues. I had no high blood pressure. I had no diabetes, and all of a sudden they said, "Well, your sugar glucose is 750. How come you're not comatose right now?" And I was a bit delirious, and I had some symptoms, but I just took it as, oh, I just got a transplant. It's from the transplant. I should have, even post-transplant, I should have paid attention more, and I feel like I didn't. So I have type 2 diabetes. It is from my steroids that I took to someone that my new kidney does not reject. And I feel like if there was better research and funding, that wouldn't have occurred. There's no reason why someone who didn't have high blood pressure before the condition, didn't have diabetes before the condition, gets her diseases fixed just to pick another one up. I never asked for that. The thought of sticking a needle, watching, doing monitoring was never part of my game plan, and it definitely wasn't part of my bingo cards, okay? But I am happy to stand here today to advocate for end-stage locally as well, and for NephCure. I actually joined a Facebook group for FSGS, and thank you to Kelly. I had put a couple testimonies up there, and she reached out and said, hey, I have some things in DC that you're local to. Could you please just join? And I've anything that Kelly has asked, I have done. I am more than happy to advocate. I really wish I had that advocacy for myself. Even now, I have nephrologists that have to text another nephrologist, which is like insulting in a way to me, because it's like, you should be the expert and I should just be like the beginner stage. You're supposed to teach me. With that, I'm grateful to provide the patient perspective of the journey I've been through. But for one, I shouldn't have gone through dialysis during the pandemic. It took me over a year to get listed. As you can imagine, virtual visits and then hospitals trying to balance COVID. Not an ideal scenario. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But I'm very happy to be here standing today as a true patient success story. I know that it's not super successful to be a diabetic, but listen, I don't have to plug myself up to that machine. I don't have to be wiped out. I'm able to maintain a job, which was important for me as a young millennial. And with that, I'd say thank you, all the staffers, for coming out and hearing, my testimony, Becca's testimony, and allowing us to speak today. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. All right, my name is Becca Garcia, and I am the mother to that beautiful girl in the blue dress, Bria. She's my why. She is my reason that I'm here today. I'm sorry. She deserves better, just like every kidney patient here today. We're from New Mexico. New Mexico is the 5th largest state in the U.S. Bria was diagnosed with IgA nephropathy. You'll also hear it called IgAN in 2020. She had a GI bug. She was sick for 24 hours, nausea, vomiting, like any typical GI bug that you and I get. 5 days after, she broke out in a rash. I was like, this is not normal. We're going to the ER. They told us that she had Henoch-Schönlein purpura, HSP. They're like, don't worry, it'll go away in 4 weeks. Let me tell you that this has been the longest 4 weeks of my life. I am here to tell her story today and our journey that we've gone through together. Bria's IgAN is really rare and difficult to treat. It's not like most IgAN patients. It doesn't respond to the typical medication that's recommended. She has undergone high doses, which one of our doctors called it nuclear doses of prednisone, which caused her to have nephrotic syndrome as well. She has gotten generic IV infusions, rituximab. She's gotten the name brand as well. None of the responses to the medications have helped her disease. She is now stage 4 kidney disease, and I feel like it is a ticking clock that we have on our hands of when will her kidneys stop functioning. She has had to transfer care from one hospital. She's had to transfer doctors. She's had 2 kidney biopsies, 1 bone marrow biopsy, and also followed by hematology oncology. Her doctor has to write lengthy letters requesting prior authorization for medication, which he recommends. She's had to change her whole lifestyle, from extracurricular activities to eating her favorite foods and how much water she can drink a day. She's missed countless days of school due to hospitalizations, and then she has to deal with the pressure of going back to school and missing or jumping into the lessons she knows nothing about. In 3 years, her kidney disease has gone from stage 2 to stage 4. That just tells you how fast these diseases progress. We've talked to other doctors in other states. We hear all this great news about medications approved for IgAN patients. But due to the FDA's regulations, Bria's 13. She can't take them. It seems odd that we're in 2023 and we still are following a 40-year-old bill that limits the age of who can have which medications. I stand here today and I ask you guys, staffers, to take back one message. Let's make changes. Changes for our kids, changes for our future. I'm here in DC, never been here before. It's a beautiful state or district. And I'm asking you for your help. I'm asking you to help make these changes for rare kidney disease patients. Thank you.
Thank you both. Please stay. No, it takes a lot of courage to stand up here and share your personal story and what you've gone through. So please, a nice round of applause. Thank you.